The beat-em-up genre never really died. It was just waiting for the right moment to come back with a vengeance. And man, 2025 and 2026 are going to be insane years for anyone who enjoys beating the crap out of hordes of enemies. Get ready because today's list will show the 12 most insane beat-em-ups that are coming, and I guarantee some of these titles will make you question why the hell you spent so much time playing anything else. So forget the casual games for a few minutes because now the beatdown is about to get real. I'm Matthew, and we're starting the list with Double Dragon Revive, a game that signals an attempt to revitalize one of the most iconic franchises in the beat-em-up genre. The combat system has been completely revamped to meet modern standards, maintaining the classic essence but adding impressive depth. Players have access to devastating hyperlows that can be executed on the ground or in the air, with different properties depending on the altitude, wall attacks that allow for brutal combos when enemies are thrown, and the glorious return of the series' iconic weapons, from knives to tofas and heavy hammers. The Dragon Orb meter adds a strategic layer, being charged through normal attacks and receiving bonuses when using weapons, stage gimmicks, or landing critical assaults, allowing you to unleash devastating finishing blows that clear entire screens of enemies. The 2.5D gameplay perfectly uses the environments as weapons, with each stage filled with unique gimmicks that can take down even the strongest enemies with a single hit. The counter system is another highlight. When enemies glow blue, hitting the perfect timing results in a critical assault that leaves the opponent stunned and vulnerable. It's a game that rewards both creativity and reflexes, encouraging different strategies and playstyles until you get that perfect clear. The cooperative mode is obviously essential in any self-respecting beat-em-up, and Double Dragon Revive doesn't disappoint by offering both online and offline co-op. Visually, the game impresses with modern 3D graphics that maintain that classic side-scrolling feel, but with a contemporary polish that does justice to the franchise's legacy. Double Dragon Revive seems to be the kind of respectful homage that veteran fans desire, while also offering enough depth to attract a new generation of players. Dotemu and Tribute Games, the dream team responsible for the phenomenal Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge, now turn their attention to the Marvel Universe with Cosmic Invasion. This 90s-style pixel art beat-em-up pits 15 Marvel heroes against Annihilus and his deadly annihilation wave that threatens the entire galaxy. The premise is simple but effective. Terrestrial and cosmic heroes must join forces in an interstellar adventure that goes from the streets of New York to the depths of the negative zone. The character roster is absolutely insane, and shows that Marvel understood the assignment. We have everything from obvious names like Spider-Man, Wolverine, Captain America, and Iron Man to bolder choices like Beta Ray Bill, Phyla-Vell, Cosmic Ghost Rider, and Black Panther. There are 15 playable heroes, each with unique moves, specific primary attacks, defense mechanics, block or dodge, and that screen-clearing special attack that consumes focus, a gauge that is built up by hitting enemies. The ability to select two characters and switch between them during combat adds strategic depth, even allowing for tag team moves where the secondary hero is summoned for devastating combos. The game's structure follows that classic side-scrolling beat-em-up arcade formula that Tribute Games masters so well. The pixel art visual style perfectly captures the aesthetic of 90s Marvel comics, with vibrant colors and fluid animations that make every punch and kick feel satisfying. The environments vary drastically, taking players through iconic locations of the Marvel Universe while facing hordes of enemies from the Annihilation Wave. Sega is doing something completely unprecedented in the Like a Dragon franchise by offering 2 games for the price of one on February 11th, 2026. Yakuza Kiwami. Freak is the extreme remake of the original 2009 Yakuza 3, rebuilt from the ground up with modern graphics, new cutscenes that add weight to the narrative, more intense combat, and stunning representations of Tokyo and Okinawa. But the real game changer is Dark Ties, a completely new story that puts Yoshitaka Mine, the antagonist of Yakuza 3, as the protagonist. The narrative of Yakuza Kiwami 3 follows Kazuma Kiryu, the legendary dragon of Dojima, trying to step away from the criminal life by founding the Morning Glory Orphanage in Okinawa. It's a premise loaded with emotion. Kiryu taking care of children as his own, seeking redemption and peace, but obviously his past won't leave him alone. A billion-dollar development scheme in the region involving the Yakuza, the government, and even the CIA threatens to destroy everything Kiryu has built, forcing him back into action. It's Yakuza in its purest essence. Intense family drama mixed with political conspiracies and a lot of brawling. Dark Ties is where things get really interesting, as it documents Yoshitaka Mine's transformation from a successful businessman into a hardened Yakuza. The game briefly explores Mine's disillusionment with corporate life and his decision to enter the underworld through a shaky friendship with Tsuyoshi Kanda. Mine uses boxing as his fighting style, differentiating him from Kiryu and offering a distinct combat experience. It's fascinating to get the villain's perspective, understand his motivations, and see how he reached the point of confronting Kiryu in the original game. The combat system maintains the series' beat-em-up core but is completely refined for modern standards. The battles are more intense than ever, with Sega promising that both Yakuza Kiwami 3 and Dark Ties offer enhanced action experiences that live up to the franchise's legacy. Axe of Blood is an Indonesian beat-em-up that isn't afraid to be brutal, violent, and dark. Developed by Exil Team and set in the dystopian city of Bandung, Indonesia, the game follows Hendra, a law student whose life is shattered when his family is murdered by his father's business rival. The corrupt justice system protects the killers, so Hendra decides to take justice into his own hands, uncovering a powerful group behind the attack and embarking on a bloody journey of revenge. The third-person combat focuses on fast and visceral hand-to-hand brawling, but it's not just limited to fists. Hendra has access to a diverse arsenal of melee and firearms, from bats and knives to pistols and rifles. The executions are described as gruesome finishers and blood-soaked, making it clear that this is not a game for the faint of heart. The dynamic combat system allows for fluid chains of crushing attacks, blocks, and counters, with realistic enemy reactions and brutal finishers that keep every confrontation intensely engaging. One of the most interesting aspects is the use of destructible environmental elements that add realism and strategy to combat. Players can shatter furniture, use objects as improvised weapons, and create chaotic and unpredictable situations that favor creative and ruthless tactical approaches. Some objects can even be kicked and thrown as projectiles, significantly expanding combat options in each encounter. The traditional parkour system provides fluid movements and dynamic escapes, allowing Hendra to run, jump, and climb levels while seamlessly integrating agility into combat. This not only adds verticality to the fights, but also allows for strategic positioning and surprise attacks, turning every arena into a playground of violent possibilities.
Come over here, you little bastard!
Where did this Bigfoot came from?
Spine is a third-person action game inspired by gun fu movies like John Wick, developed by Neki. The premise is pure cyberpunk. You control Redline, a rebellious street artist equipped with Spine, a sentient combat implant, as she challenges an autocratic AI regime in search of her captured brother. It's a story of resistance against technological oppression, wrapped in intense cinematic combat that makes every bullet and every move feel like part of a lethal choreography. The game's focus is entirely on firearms, but not in a traditional way. Everything in Spine revolves around how Redline uses firearms. Whether in free-flow combos, dodges, or overpowering opponents, every mechanic was designed to feel like a gun fu movie. The most interesting thing is that Redline doesn't carry an inventory of weapons. Instead, she turns enemies' weapons against them, creating a dynamic combat flow where you're constantly picking up, using, and discarding weaponry. She can also use spray paint to blind enemies, attack with nearby objects, and use the environment to her advantage. The combat system was designed to be satisfying against both regular enemies and powerful bosses. The game's structure encourages creativity. You can shoot, dodge, use parkour, and manipulate the environment in endless combinations. The cyberpunk aesthetic is stunning, with a neon-lit New Tokyo controlled by an autocratic AI called Sir, which dominates the government and allows gangs to destroy the city. The dystopian setting serves as a perfect backdrop for Redline's journey. The game's visual style is clearly inspired by the stylization of John Wick and other modern gun fu films. Every action feels impactful and cinematic, from the shooting animations to the acrobatic moves Redline performs while eliminating enemies. Detained Too Good for School is a 2D action RPG that puts you in control of a school delinquent recently released after 6 months behind bars. Developed by ARTcade Games, the same studio responsible for The Vagrant. The game promises to significantly expand on that title's acclaimed combat system with over 90 upgradable skills and an arsenal of weapons to collect. The protagonist is basically a schoolgirl badass capable of taking on hordes of violent enemies alone, and the premise is absolutely delicious. The story is loaded with noir drama. After being released from a juvenile detention facility, the protagonist embarks on a dangerous mission to avenge her brother's murder. The journey takes her through the densely populated metropolis of Swinster City, a decaying urban jungle controlled by gangs that all want you dead. The player can choose between fighting for justice and becoming the city's savior, or joining the criminal underworld and declaring war on law and order. It's a morality system that promises real consequences for your choices. The combat is explosive, fast, impactful, and intensely satisfying, based on an enhanced version of the celebrated engine from The Vagrant. The system supports over 90 upgradable skills, giving players an absurd level of customization to create the ultimate fighting style. The variety of collectible weapons ensures you always have the right tool for every situation, whether facing large groups or dueling powerful bosses. The fights literally leave the streets covered with the bodies of those who stood in your way. The game has an anime noir aesthetic that stands out immediately. The trailer shows a hard-hitting combat system with an impressive variety of weapons and skills, all rendered in beautiful 2D graphics. This game here is for those who like something completely different in the beat-em-up genre. Developed by Mishura Games, a studio from Estonia, Immortal. And the death that follows mixes stylish brawling with elements of a dating sim, Metroidvania, and RPG in a setting based on Buddhist mythology. We control Fudo, the fallen wisdom king who was the guardian of a prison for demigods, and we need to plan the perfect escape while fighting against death who is hunting him. The visuals are an explosion of stylized art reminiscent of 90s anime, with that dark fantasy touch that gives it a heavy and nostalgic vibe at the same time. What makes this game unique is its combat. We can create our own personalized fighting style, and there's even a creator and destroyer system that works like a special meter bar. Plus, you can convert mini-bosses and bosses into allies during the journey, which adds a very interesting strategic layer. The game focuses a lot on character relationships. There are dating sim elements where building friendships and relationships is as important as beating down enemies. It's like Asura's Wrath meets a roguelite beat-em-up with a dash of visual novel. The campaign takes place entirely within this mystical prison where Asura warriors and other Buddhist mythological creatures are trapped. Each Asura gang has its own visual identity and combat mechanics, and we can choose to ally with them or face them. The story is presented as a kung fu noir drama, with that heavy prison atmosphere, but with all the supernatural aesthetics of Eastern mythology. There are layers of narrative that are revealed as we deepen our relationships with NPCs. Blackwood is the kind of game that's still shrouded in mystery, but it already grabs attention with its proposal. Being developed by Atrium 7 Productions, the game promises to mix beat-em-up mechanics with life simulation elements in a cinematic action package. The setting seems to be something darker and more mature, moving away from the colorful and arcade-like vibe that dominates the genre. It's for those who enjoy a denser experience with narrative weight alongside the brawling. What we know is that the game is classified as action, adventure, RPG, and strategy on Steam, which already indicates a complexity beyond the traditional beat-em-up. This combination of genres suggests that we'll have strategic decisions, character progression with RPG elements, and an adventure with very distinct stages. The life simulation part integrated into the combat is the most curious differentiator. Imagine having to manage aspects of the character's life between brawling sessions. The developer Atrium 7 Productions is keeping a lot about the project under wraps, releasing information slowly. What's clear is that they want to create something that subverts the genre's expectations, bringing a more cinematic and immersive experience. The term cinematic action they use to describe Blackwood indicates well-produced cutscenes, a polished presentation, and perhaps a more dynamic camera during gameplay. Since it's a project still in early development, there isn't much information about the story, characters, or specific mechanics. What one can speculate is that the mix of beat-em-up with life sim might involve choices that affect both combat and narrative, like having to train specific skills, form alliances, or make moral decisions that change the course of the story. Mad King Redemption is a project coming from Secret Mission, a studio formed by industry veterans who have worked at places like Epic Games and Ubisoft. The game mixes traditional beat-em-up with roguelite progression and a deck-building system that functions as a metagame. Imagine Golden Axe meeting elements of Slay the Spire and Hades. That's exactly the vibe. The premise is liberating. We control heroes who must defeat the Mad King to free the world of Etheria from a curse. The strongest differentiator is the system of 14 playable characters, each with their own combat style, customizable stats, and a dark story to tell. All heroes have a dark side. They must redeem throughout their journey. Before each battle, we build a deck of cards by choosing which to include based on our preferred playstyle. And during combat, these cards are played to execute special attacks, buffs, and abilities. There are 162 unique cards in total, including rare cards and class-exclusive options. The visuals are pixel art in a 2.5D world, bringing back that nostalgia of arcade classics but with modern 3D mechanics. The controls are old school, that thing of walking to the right while beating up hordes of enemies, but with layers of depth that come from the card system and roguelite progression. With each run, we unlock new heroes and cards, and most interestingly, any damage dealt to the Mad King persists in the same run across different heroes. Only when all heroes die does the king regain his full health. This persistent damage mechanic across characters is brilliant because it encourages strategy. We need to decide which hero to use at each moment, knowing that even if they die, the progress against the final boss will carry over to the next ones. It's like a relay of warriors in an epic battle that only ends when the Brotherhood of Heroes finally defeats the tyrant, or when they all fall. This title suggests a celebration of one of the most beloved intellectual properties of the 80s. The premise of Dragon Pearl of Destruction would be a classic adventure. Skeletor discovers an ancient artifact capable of plunging Eternia into darkness, and He-Man and the Masters of the Universe must stop him. The game would present itself as a cooperative beat-em-up, focused on fan service and capturing the heroic and colorful essence of the original animated series. The gameplay would be designed to be accessible, but with depth to keep players engaged. Players could choose from a vast roster of characters, each with a unique fighting style. He-Man with his overwhelming strength, Man-at-Arms with his tactical prowess, Teela with her agility, and the Sorceress with magical attacks. A central mechanic could be Prince Adam's transformation into He-Man, which would function as a super mode activated after filling a power bar, granting temporary invincibility and devastating attacks. Visually, the game would adopt a high-quality cel-shading style to emulate the look of the classic Filmation animation. but with the fluidity and detail that modern technology allows. The colors would be vibrant and saturated, and the environments would recreate iconic locations from Eternia. From the halls of Castle Grayskull to the dark swamps surrounding Snake Mountain, the animations would be faithful to the characters' signature moves and poses. The narrative would be structured like a multi-episode arc from the cartoon. The story would be straightforward, with Skeletor and his minions, Evil Lyn, Beastman, Trapjaw, always one step ahead, forcing the heroes to travel all over Eternia. The tone would be light-hearted, filled with dialogues that capture the personality of each character, including Skeletor's frustrated attempts and his comical complaints. Each stage would end with the traditional moral lesson, as a tribute to the original format. Mexican Ninja is a pure crazy trip. Developed by Amber Studio, Redrum, and Madbricks, the game is a 2.5D roguelike beat-em-up that mixes Mexican culture with Japanese cyberpunk in a totally nonsensical and brilliant way. The setting is Nuevo Tokyo, a chaotic megalopolis where narcos and Yakuzas have merged into a criminal organization called the Narcuzas. We control the Mexican Ninja, navigating the streets of this insane city, slicing through everything that comes his way. Creative director Dario Hoyo makes the game's philosophy clear. Fast, skill-based combat, with comedy living inside the fight. It's pure pick up and play, that arcade throwback where anyone can grab the controller and start brawling, but it rewards those who master timing, spacing, and create smart builds. The combat turns button mashing into a ballet when you really learn the system. Each run is random, the duels are loud, and progression comes through the skill tree called the Path of the Donkey. The visual aesthetic is a perfect collision of references. It has that Mexican street grit, the iconography of luchadores and ninjas, all filtered through cyberpunk neon and Japanese architecture. The characters speak in a bilingual mix of Spanish, Portuguese, and Japanese, creating a unique dialect that is absurd, but works perfectly for the game's irreverent vibe. It's like if Hotline Miami met a classic beat-em-up in an alley in Akihabara after taking tequila. The progression system involves unlocking animal spirit paths and unleashing Mexican jutsus, which are the protagonist's special attacks. The skill tree prioritizes arrogance and style. It's not just about being efficient, it's about being as stylish as possible while wrecking the Narcuzas. You can completely customize your fighting style through these choices, creating builds focused on speed, raw power, counter-attack techniques, or infinite combos. Terrifier, the ARTcade game, is for those who aren't afraid of pixelated blood and heavy dark humor. Based on the Terrifier horror film franchise, the game puts players in control of Art the Clown, the psychopathic and unpredictable clown who has become a modern horror icon. The premise is deliciously wrong. Each stage is a film set where they are producing a movie about Art, but he decides to show up for real to put an end to this clown show, literally. It's a bloody, frantic, and reference-packed retro beat-em-up. The visuals opt for bright and cartoony pixel art that contrasts perfectly with the graphic violence of the gameplay. The animations are fluid and excel at showing each brutal attack in an exaggerated and comical way. It's that kind of over-the-top gore that borders on the absurd, like Mortal Kombat from the arcades taken to the extreme. The special attacks and finishers are hilarious and bloody at the same time, ensuring that every fight is as fun as it is brutal. The game is clearly inspired by classic beat-em-ups from the 80s and 90s. The arsenal of weapons available to Art is varied and creative. Chainsaws, cleavers, axes, and every kind of cutting instrument imaginable. Each weapon has unique attack animations and specific finishers. The combat is fast and visceral, focusing on destroying hordes of enemies in increasingly creative and grotesque ways. The gameplay maintains that arcade simplicity. Walk, attack, pick up weapons, repeat, but executed with a lot of charm and stylized violence. The local multiplayer supports up to 4 players in a chaotic cooperative experience. You can work together with friends or compete to see who can cause the most carnage. There are 6 different game modes, offering variety beyond the main campaign. Whether it's a quick brawling session or an extended challenge, there's a mode for every type of player.
I can tell we need to talk about things, so I'll let you start. Yes, I'm listening. Oh, I understand that. You need help with what you say? Oh, that's crazy. That's crazy, because the last time that we talked about this, I felt like I was really clear. I gave you everything that you needed to hear, but you're still asking me for more. No, I'm just trying to understand what you're asking for. Because the only thing that I can't really describe right now is how angry I am about you not listening to what I said before. You're just not listening. You're projecting and you're not listening. You're not listening. No, you're not listening. All right, what do you have to say? I'm listening. You make me feel like I'm losing my mind. I said it, and you're still not understanding. I've given you everything that you've been looking for. What else could I do? What else can I give you? What else can I say? What else do you need from me? I am. I'm going crazy. Yeah, I'm repetitive. I'm saying it over and over and over and over and over and over again. Why should I repeat myself?